I'm Jason Nunez, and let's queer up politics. Outrage grows after ex-Trump official says Christians should impose beliefs across America. A former Trump administration official is drawing backlash after openly stating that Christian values should be enforced across the United States. William Wolfe, who served in both the Defense and State Departments, made the remarks during a speech at a church in West Virginia. Now leading the Center for Baptist Leadership, Wolfe told the audience that Christians should not blink when directing how others live. Here's a clip from watchdog group Right Wing Watch.
We should not blink, we should not hesitate to tell people, not because we are so wise, not because we made the rules of the world, we didn't. We humbly submit to how God made the rules of the world, and we say this is how we should order our lives together. And frankly, yes, we are going to impose it upon you. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but this is good and right and just if it lines up with God's standards. And I am going to enforce my morality on you in as much as our morality is God's morality. And you should always check yourselves. Again, I'm not trying to puff you up. Check yourself. Do I believe what God believes? Am I defending what God says is good? And if it is, then you should have the courage to say, this is how we're going to run our town. This is how we're going to run our county. This is how we're going to run our state. And this is how we should run the United States of America by legislating the morality that we can find in the Bible.
The remarks are now circulating widely online, raising concerns, especially within the LGBTQ plus community, about religious overreach into public policy. So there's no secret that politics have tried to make their way into everything. I served 23 years in the military as a religious affairs airman.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. My job was to make sure that all of our troops, wherever they were at, had that First Amendment right to practice or not practice their faith, their religion, whether it was getting a proper space for earth-based faiths, making sure that we had a crucifix for the Catholics, making sure we had a cross without the corpse for Protestants, making sure we had whatever we needed for our Jewish personnel and Muslim personnel. And that freedom of religion, for 23 years, our motto for the chaplain corps was, we're visible reminders of the holy. People used to see us, like, literally, I used to have people not want to hang out with me because they thought that I was, like, super religious.
Holier than that.
But that's a freedom that we get to choose, that they had the freedom to choose or not to choose. And this story about imposing, like, that is contrary to our Constitution in terms of forcing religion upon anybody, and it's extremely disappointing.
Well, coming myself as a 8th grade U.S. history teacher, I can tell you a thing or two about the Constitution. A lot of these religious fundamentalists want to say that we are a Christian nation. And it is true that there were a lot of Christian people that were here in the country when it was founded in 1776, but they made especially certain to say that you had the right to either be religious or not be religious, and the government would not infringe on that. What this, I was going to say gentleman, but what this religious wingnut was actually saying in his speech in West Virginia was actually that he doesn't believe in the separation of church and state, that he believes that he can practice Christian Sharia law. Everybody wants to make Muslim people, the boogeyman, when really the boogeyman is already here. And the boogeyman is the fact that you are going to start having people, if they are left unchecked, you're going to start having people overreaching. You're going to have people telling you what is correct, what is not. When he said that, we're going to dictate, I'm paraphrasing here, but I got the gist of it. This is not acceptable in our town. We don't do those sorts of things here. What does that mean? You're going to run people out of town because you think that they're gender nonconforming? You're going to run people out of town because they have a gay family member? You're going to shun people? It's a very slippery slope when you start proselytizing in the public space to people who do not want to be proselytized to. And it's actually, I don't believe that speech is violence. Some people do, and I understand that argument. Even though his speech is not violence, it incites violence, because how are you...
It gives permission.
Because how are you going to enforce that? What exactly does that mean? That means you're going to reach for your Second Amendment, which is your right to bear arms. And I don't condone any violence. I want to make that 100% personally clear. I'm all for nonviolence, but I don't think that wingnut is.
Well, think
yeah.
about it. The word enforce has force in it. And
Right.
that's what I feel that they're going to do.
Absolutely.
So separation of church and state isn't a suggestion. It literally is how this country was supposed to work.
Right.
Okay. You can live by your religion. Absolutely. But once you start saying you're going to impose it on everyone, all right, that's not faith. That's control. And Americans don't do well when you try to control them in this way.
Absolutely. And there's a doctrine that says you have all the freedom you want until it starts butting up and infringing on other people's freedoms. So go be free, but don't run through a red light and say, that's my freedom. No, there's what's called a social contract. You live in a society, you give up certain rights so that you're protected by other rights in the society. And one of the things that you give up is forcefully proselytizing to other people and enforcing your religion on them, so that way you can enjoy your religion privately with your community. We do have First Amendment, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of speech. Those are all very clearly protected. What he's talking about, though, is some kind of mutant Ninja Turtle version of what he believes is the right way to live in the United States. And I got news for you, sir. There is no one right way to live in the United States. As long as you're not infringing on somebody else, go do your thing. But when you start advocating, enforcing, and I like what you said about force being in there, when you start using words like force against other people because you believe that your sky god tells you that it's okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm a person that has faith. I'm a person that I believe is very spiritual. But I would never think that I know the will of God so well that I'm going to tell you that what I believe you should believe as well. I think whatever you believe is beautiful for you because you've come to an understanding.
Yeah.
And if that brings you peace, that's great. But when it starts infringing on other people's religious liberty, that's where I have a problem. So West Virginia, I should say do better, but I don't know that you can. And I'm sorry for the people that are by happenstance living there. So try to get out as soon as you can.
Try to get out. Well, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.